Mic check, mic check. Mortal Masters Podcast. Y'all's made of calls. I got a special guest across from me. I got Augustus D.A. Jared Williams. How you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. Good to be back.
Yeah, man. A long time. You've been doing well since then, it seemed like, So I'm happy for you. All the success you have had. I think the last time we did an episode, I think it was really good to get the people to get to know your story. I always try to tell people when I do elected officials or just people that's got some kind of power or just it's important to the city. It's good to get their story out. One, for somebody who may be interested in doing that as well.
Yeah.
So they can kind of know your background and, the trials and tribulations you had to do it. And then also just so people can understand maybe the why behind some things you do.
Sure.
I think anybody that watched that last episode, I think everything you're doing now still, like, it just makes sense to what you were saying, You hear a lot of stuff about, quote unquote, soft on crime, is that and third, but I think you thoroughly explained a lot of the reason and why.
Yeah.
You focus on X, Y, Z versus this.
I'm not hiding the ball.
Yeah,
I'm exactly who I told you I was going to be every time.
So I like that. I think, we give a lot of flack for elected officials who get in office and change the script, flip the script. And I think that for me, I know, the same thing you ran on, the same thing you said you were going to do are the same things you're doing now.
Absolutely.
So, of course, I'm always shocked. And I'm like, well, why is this news? This is not, this is, to me, it's like, this is not news. This is what he said he was going to do. So I start out with this, matter of fact, I saw a picture today, man. How was Laney homecoming?
Man, it was good, bro. It's
clap it up for Laney, man.
It is, yeah, absolutely, man. The party is just outstanding, right? Like, you got people tailgating like it's a Georgia football game. I had to try and get a little taste, a plate at every stop I could make. It was a really good time, man. It's just good to be around family.
Yeah, man. I said, look at Jared out here, man.
You gonna catch me on the boulevard now?
Yo, I want to ask you that too. But I know we got stuff to get into. But like, what does it mean to you, or if anything, or maybe what do you see on people's faces when you who you are, you do what you do here, and you're out and about as if you are, not that you're not a regular person, right? Like, what does that mean to you to do that?
Man, it's a good reality check just to spend time with people and just to be around the real people, not the folks in the echo chamber, not like the online, made up world, but like the actual world where people are. One, because it's good to feel that love, or it's good to feel that pressure. If there's not love, you need to recognize where that's coming from. But then two, just to relax a little bit, Yeah. I'm at peace and I am at home. This is where I'm from. This is where I love. And so just to be able to still do that is a really good thing.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. Like, do you ever go out somewhere, like, what is it like when it's not love there, maybe? Like, that's like, not, and I don't mean like hatred. I just mean like, you can tell, like, maybe, I don't know, like, there's something that it's just not, they don't like.
So I was at an event at the Performing Arts Center, which is in a county that used to be in my jurisdiction.
Oh, God.
And I mean, sorry for the toilet humor, but I was in the bathroom. I'm at the urinal. And as I'm, handling business, someone wants to start jaw-jacking about some case that they wish I had done something differently on. And I'm like, literally, this is not the time. Like, I'm a little busy, and I don't really, I just don't need the static in the bathroom. So then, I kind of just ignore that. I keep it moving. But I had my wife with me, and then so we're walking out, and that guy and his wife come, and they got stuff to say, and they're basically what they were saying was like, "You're not welcome here," and I'm like, I can handle it. I don't particularly appreciate it being around my family, and so that's not fun. But at the same time, if you're living your life in a way where everybody likes you, probably you're not being authentic. And probably, especially as an elected official, as a public servant, you're probably not moving the needle. So, Kirby Smart would say pressure is a privilege. I would say hate is a privilege too, because it means that you're actually moving the needle.
I like that. I can see that. I can see that. If everybody likes you, probably you're not challenging something.
Right.
Something's not being challenged somewhere. But how was that for you? Like, so since it's, hate can be a privilege as well, obviously you don't like those kind of moments, especially with your family, but like, is that something that, you feel like, well, I signed up for this, so I'm gonna take it?
Yeah, so I signed up for it. And that's the distinction for me, is I signed up for it. I was a single man when I ran for office. I didn't have a wife and a kid, right? And so now it takes a different tenor for sure. I mean, and we see a lot of the political violence that's happening around the U.S. And so, of course, I had to be very careful. But it was a lot easier when it was just me. Now I kind of have to focus on making sure that my family's good.
Pardon me. So I do want to ask, and I want to start with this just because I know we got your story out the way and stuff, but just for people that's watching it, just to get familiar with what we're talking about and to keep you up to speed with some stuff we might speak on. You are the district attorney for Augusta and Burke County, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Not Columbia County, though. That's
Not
something
anymore.
that changed.
Yeah.
At first, it was all 3 counties.
Correct.
Okay. They can do their own research on why the change. I think we spoke on that last time, so I don't want to spend too much time on Columbia County.
Sure.
But Augusta and Burke County. So tell the people again, if you can, I don't know if it changed now, but like, what is the job of the district attorney?
So basically, we are the lawyers for the state. And what we do is when the sheriff's office or the law enforcement agency, whoever it is, makes an investigation, makes an arrest, they will send their case file, their evidence, their information to us. And we're looking for 3 main things. One, did law enforcement follow the law? Because at least ostensibly right now, we still have a constitution. And so we have to make sure that people's rights are respected. Once we can answer that into the affirmative, we go to the second question, which is, do we believe that the person who's accused of the crime is likely the person who did the crime? That's called probable cause. Everyone's heard of that if they watch TV. So if we have no violations of someone's rights and we have probable cause, the last question, and this is a really important one, is do we have or expect to have prior to trial proof beyond a reasonable doubt? Is there enough evidence to actually make this a case? Because if not, then ethically, I shouldn't bring the case, right? Because once you indict someone, you're putting a stamp on them that you're making a formal accusation. And you really should only do that if you believe you're going to be able to prove up what you're accusing them of. And so if I can answer all 3 of those in the affirmative, then there's a world of discretion as to what happens next. And so a lot of times you hear about cases going to trial. That's what people see the most and think about. The majority of cases actually get resolved short of trial. That can be through a plea agreement, or it can be through diversion. It can be through any other non-trial resolution.
When you say diversion, can you expound on that real quick?
Sure. So if I'm looking at a case and it's a 17-year-old and he's got a felony amount of marijuana, all right, I can look at his case and say, you know what, I don't want to pursue that through the regular system. I don't want him to be sitting in the same courtroom with people who are out here dealing drugs or breaking into houses. I want to send him on a different path. So I can set up a diversion that might look like some unofficial probation. It might be a class. It might be I drug test him for a few months in a row. Or usually what I'm looking for is, are you working? Have you finished your education? Or are you in the process of getting educated? And what kind of things are in place to make me comfortable I'm not going to see you again?
Right.
And so I can divert cases away from the justice system that way.
I'm just out of curiosity, when you do divert them, does that dismiss the case, or does that make the case, like, is it closed at that point?
So it basically gets put on pause until I close it. So
Okay,
when you're in a diversion program, like we have the pretrial diversion. So through that, you might be on for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, depending on what you did and what we think your needs are. We're basically pressing pause. And if you do everything that we expect of you, if you show accountability, then we can dismiss the case at that point.
Okay. Got you. All right, because, in the media right now, I know that was something about, like, dismissing cases and stuff like that. So I didn't know if, but I also heard, you hear about dismissing cases, and I don't know what's your stance on that. I just seen in the headline. I don't read a publication.
Sure.
So me personally, when I see it on my timeline, it really grinds my gears. I don't like clickbait. I don't like that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just not into it.
Making fun of people.
Yeah, it's not me. I rather see a conversation. So if people, like, if certain media outlets, just not saying everybody should do a podcast, if they interview and they say, hey, this is the clickbait, maybe whatever, but this is the full length conversation we've had, I'm cool with that. You know, I feel like
Sure.
nothing's gonna be like out of this, so they can see from start to finish to understand why you're saying what you're saying. I like that. But when you have to read certain things, so many things be left out because when you, and I don't know how you feel. How do you feel about that when you give quotes and you might have gave a four, like you just spoke like for 4 or 5 minutes, right? What if I just took 7 seconds and said, you know, and put the worst 7 seconds of it out? You know, it's like that's
Yeah.
corny to me. But a lot of people do that.
Most media outlets do that.
How do y'all feel when?
It's a combination of, one, I feel like you've allowed me to mislead someone, or two, I've just wasted a lot of my time, right? Like I don't have very much time. And so
I would assume so.
to give the time to a media outlet and for them to cut it down, I'm expecting some cuts if we're trying to get it on TV or do something like that. Like that's, but the tenor and the full context of what I'm saying should still be apparent. Right. And when it's not, that's when I have an issue with it. Or you take what would be a balanced article, but you put some sensational tag on Facebook. Like, you know, if you write an article about me and it's about how great of a DA I am, but the headline that you put on there is Jared is a schmuck, some say, you know, like that's that's not helping me, and right? And we know that most people aren't clicking through to read the whole article, so all they're going to see is the headline and the tag that you put on it. So, you know, I don't really like when they mislead.
And I'm just going to kind of walk into it anyway, just because I feel like that was something that I was real curious on, because I asked you, you know, what the DA does, and of course, you know, I had Gino on here, and he told me what the sheriff does as well. And I asked you last time, but I think Ron, might have still been in office at the time.
Right.
So how do you guys' jobs descriptions either balance each other or counter each other? Because I know y'all on the same page for the most part.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they counter each other at all. I think it is a balance for sure, because I mean, look, you've got to make an arrest or make a case or choose not to.
Right.
And there's not really much value in me second guessing or Monday morning quarterbacking that, right? What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to take what you send me, and I'm going to make sure that the law was followed. I'm going to make sure that probable cause existed, and I'm going to see whether there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Along with that, I'm also going to be thinking about, because I have limited resources, is this a case worth pursuing? Is there something that I can achieve through prosecution that hasn't already been achieved through the arrest itself? And that's kind of where some tension can happen, right? Because if you make an arrest and you expect a conviction, well, I mean, what was the basis for the arrest? Is it a guy who's out here breaking into cars or breaking into people's homes? Absolutely. We're going to pursue that to conviction because we want to stop that behavior, right?
Right.
But if it's the dude who's been on the same corner with the same gram of the same drug in his sock for the past 20 years, like, are we going to make any meaningful headway with this? Probably not. And so spending 18 months litigating that usually is not a good return on that investment when we've already taken his drugs, we've taken him off the street. I mean, that's what we should be doing now, is trying to get him to treatment. We should be trying to get him to help. And a lot of times the court process, because it's adversarial and because it triggers constitutional rights, it ends up being slow and like I say, adversarial, such that me trying to put services in place is being fought against by his attorney, right? And so all those things are counterproductive. What I think is really important for prosecutors in the 21st century is we need to recognize our power and also the limitations in our power, and focus on working on the problems that we can actually solve, and focusing on cases where we can actually win safety for the community, and recognizing if we can't do that, let's get out of the way. Let's get out of the way of the community partners who could actually help that guy.
Yeah. I like that. And I think that's the stuff, the words you're saying are needed, because we get a lot of headlines. And I know there was a lot of, I don't know if it was, I can't say I was seed planted, but it seems, I said counter earlier because it seemed like it was a media agenda at some point to pit you two against each other. I remember speaking on it very briefly, just saying, like, I didn't like that, you know, people putting two elected officials. I might have said black, but elected black, it don't matter to me. Just the fact that y'all's two jobs go hand in hand.
Right.
You know, it's like one person does one thing, other person does the after of that. You know, and I think that sometimes we don't have no, like nothing's going on. We just stir up something, make something
Sure.
go on. And I did speak to the sheriff, just FYI, and he said, yeah, I had a great relationship. So I guess I would ask that question for you, dealing with, you know, two different sheriffs. I guess just talk about the relationship between you and Gino and like his efforts and some things you've been doing collaboratively.
Look, I love what he's doing in the community. He is available, he's out there, and that's needed. I think it's always been needed. Another thing is that he's been really communicative with me and vice versa. I feel like we have an open line of communication, and that's really helpful. I have no bones about it. I support the work that he's doing, and there's a lot of good to it. I also get to see behind the scenes some of the technological advances that are happening, and I think all of it's going to be great, right? I think that both of us can admit that while we might be coming from a different place, we both want to see this community thrive. We want it to become the safest place it can be. And I hope he knows, I'm sure he does because I've told him and he's told me the same. We want to work together to make that happen. So when the media tries to do their thing and make it something that it's not, it's really important to set the record straight.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think even and I don't know how y'all feel about this, but even like, you know, they're using, of course they're using you guys' words, but like I said, me being in media, I always be like, I want to see more of what was said. I don't want to see a sentence of what might have been. Like I said, you give very detailed answers. You might have gave a 2-minute answer. Well, this is only 6 words in his dialogue. Or even with him, I spoke to him as well. He gives pretty winded answers as well. So, and I see 4 or 5 words. I'm like, it don't add up.
Right.
I need to know like the grand scheme of things. But I guess what I would ask you, because I know people want to know that's gonna watch this, when all that was going down, what were y'all conversations like at that time? Like when a public, I just say J Report, I don't mind saying, because they do their work. But the J Report putting whatever they put out, did that alter you guys' conversation, or you feel like you had to do more, or you feel like I should have posted a status or say, hey, no problems here? Like, what was that like for you?
So first, I gotta say that you gotta remember the context of like there was a mall shooting, there was another shooting. I mean, there's like actual stuff going on, and so to the extent he and I don't talk every day is because we both got full plates, right? But even when that publication started asking questions, I called him. I said, "Look, people are trying to pit us against one another. I just want you to hear from me. I support you 1,000%." There's never a time that I'm not gonna support you because I need you to win. I need the sheriff's office to win because them doing better and succeeding helps me and my team succeed, and it makes our whole community better. So like, there's no, if you really love this community that you serve, then you don't want politics or disagreements over policy to get in the way of the work, right? And I've never felt that he wants that, and I certainly don't. So, you know, people are going to try what they try. Of
course.
But if you're standing on business, then you really don't have to worry about that.
I like that. I do want to say something, and I think I didn't put that into the perspective you just put it in. I knew it all was happening, but I guess maybe I didn't think about it on a grand scheme of things. So I want to build a timeline for anybody that's watching as well. Like, there was, we say a mall shooting, but it was a little more than that. Someone died in the mall in broad daylight. It's just in the mall. Like, a killing happened, a murder happened in the mall.
Right.
Somewhat, you can say execution style, so to speak, but a killing happened in the mall. That's a big deal. This is the mall where people shop. Everybody's in Augusta is in the mall from all counties: Columbia County, Burke County, Augusta.
I take my son there.
Kids, older people, kids, like young people that work in the mall. Like, there's people that there's families that send their children to the mall, they drop them off to work, and they're expecting their children to come back home that night. A killing happened in that same place.
Right.
Right. So that's a big deal. And then after that, you know, I think the next day, maybe the same, I don't know, was a shooting
Mm-hmm.
that involved kids, where it could have been victims that were also kids at the time, potentially, right? So you have these two big shootings where somebody ended up dead, and could have been more had things went a different way. I kind of can understand, I guess now. At first, I was one of the people on the phone like, why they just don't say, hey, we're cool, no big deal. But I guess it's just bigger stuff going on than for y'all to sit down and say, yo, let's do a press conference to say, hey, we cool. Like I guess there's more on you guys' plate, and I'm talking about those two cases, but you probably got other cases as well from your day to day that you also have to deal with.
We've been trying cases, every week we're actually trying cases in front of juries. And so it's just a busy time. And I don't want to say too much about active cases because I have rules over me that I can't say certain things. But just the reality is this: those deaths and violent episodes are exactly why I say that my resources have to be tied up in the things where I can actually win safety, and not spinning my wheels on things that we know from 50 years of a drug war aren't going to work, right? And so for me, I am all about, let's go after the people who are peddling the poison. Let's go after the people who are creating the misery. But those who are hurting and suffering, we could have someone better equipped deal with the public health crisis that is substance use disorder. Because my attorneys and my investigators and my victim advocates and legal assistants and paralegals, all of them have to be working on victim cases, deaths, shootings, crimes against women, crimes against children, crimes against the elderly. When I'm out in the community, going back to what we talked about before, when I'm out in the community, that's what people want to talk about, right? They're not saying, Jared, what are you going to do about the dude on the moped with 2 grams of meth? They're saying, what are you going to do about these kids that are picking up guns every day? And I'll be honest with you, man, I'm not ashamed of this, but I was in court, this was probably 2 months ago now, and every Friday I'm in court, I do bond hearings. A bond hearing is where someone's been arrested, they've been sitting in jail, they haven't been released, and so they go to the court and they ask for a bond so they could be released. And it just felt like for 5 weeks in a row, every time I was up there asking the judge to hold a child in confinement because that child had picked up a gun and done something stupid. And it was very clear to me that that child's support system was not robust enough to keep him off the streets and without a gun in his hand. And so what options do we have? And so this was probably the 5th week in a row that I had something like that. And I got so angry. I wasn't sad. I was angry that I literally had to stop court. I had to walk out and weep because I'll get emotional about it now. There's so much that we could do to actually help. There's so much that we could do to actually prevent this from happening. And all anybody wants to do is wait until it's happening and then tell me to go lock this kid up, this 14, 15, 16-year-old up, right? Why don't we focus on the kids when they're in their first 1,000 days of life and we know that they're not getting read to, they're not getting fed, they're not getting nourished, and they're growing up in circumstances where we know they're going to end up, fast forward 12, 13, 14 years, and they're in the court system. We know that when you create these conditions where men are pulled out of a community for nonviolent offenses and put in prison cells, that they're not there to be in the home, where if you don't educate people, they can't then educate their kids. When you have everybody out here fighting for their lives, broke, working 8 jobs to make almost all their ends be met, we know that all those things tie into crime. But people only want to react to crime. They never want to be proactive. They never want to actually get to the root cause of what's happening. And it's so frustrating that in the state where they make it harder to get an education, they literally take money out of the public schools, but they make it easier to get a gun. Everyone's like, what are we going to do with all these child gun crimes? Well, I don't know. Maybe reverse the policies that create the conditions where this can happen. And so I was just standing in court, delivering my argument, and I just got so angry that no one wants to do anything about this problem. All they want is to say, discard the next one and move on to the next. If we could put that same energy into a young person before they ever pick up that gun, we would save lives, both the victim and the would-be offender.
I want to clap it up for you. That's just a great answer. I think that we don't talk enough about people being reactive and not proactive, especially when it comes to kids. I hate to put them on a spot, but I do a lot of work with Augusta Explain page as well. Like that's my girl, and we had some people on, and we asked the question of like, what are we gonna do? What are they gonna do for youth development? That was a rough part of the interview, is because I don't want to say it felt like they wasn't gonna do anything or didn't have anything, but when I think about what you're talking about being proactive and reactive, you can sense when someone is reactive, and I think even if as in leaders, and you're a leader as well, obviously crime and stuff is a focus for you, but I feel like as long as you're a leader and it's over a certain area, whether it's your job, quote unquote, or not, you leading, so you should have some kind of outreach, some kind of relationship with a youth development, program or something like that. But that part of it was just like kind of hard to hear, even me, because I have to be an interviewer, so I can't be like, well, why not? But the comments on them were just going crazy. Like, they don't have an answer. And this was like, you start to think, and that's just one area, one district, maybe, talking about running for things. And I think about, I'm like, well, what if we ask every person that, like, what kind of answers would we get? And it was simple as, what do you plan to do about youth development? It was a simple question, super simple question. And I felt like it was hard to answer. And so when you say what you're saying, I'm thinking about you, sheriff, the police force, your lawyers under you, and maybe it's stuff y'all go through and how easier you guys' job could possibly be if people actually was okay with leading. Because that's a leadership issue to me. Whether you're talking about parents or commissioner or whatever, like, that's a leadership issue to me, to not have an idea of what do you. I feel like if I asked you right now, hey, what do you plan to do about youth development? I feel like you would know what to say. Even though you didn't come here to answer about youth development, that's kind of on your brain.
Stop the cycle. So basically, I think one of the ways that we can really help is there's always going to be times where we have to send somebody down the road, right? But many times in that circumstance, we know that the person who's going down the road has a kid or has multiple kids. And we know statistically that those kids are most likely to end up in the system. So why do we wait until they start acting up to put the services in place? Why wouldn't the moment he gets sent down the road, we send people to those homes, social workers to those homes, and put resources in place to make sure that those kids who are statistically most likely to end up in the system later get the help they need to divert them before they have to get one of my diversion programs?
Yeah. I mean,
That'd be the fastest way.
It sounds proactive to me, because we're not waiting for something to happen. And I think, even me being in the media, I never try to beat nobody up. I mean, like I said, if you don't have a good answer for something, it's just whatever it is, and you have to focus on that yourself. But I be feeling like a lot of times we like to critique a lot. We live in an age where it's so much easier to be the person that critiques things than to be the person that is in things.
Sure.
And we talk about publications and things of that nature. You got some publications that have thrived off critiquing people like you, Gino, elected officials who are putting in the groundwork for a lot of these things that they want to, quote unquote, critique, because it's not showing it fast enough results, or whatever it can be, bad week, who knows. Which is why I respect a lot of outlets. I respect, even speaking of AUG Explain, I respect the fact that when all that stuff happened in the mall, those cases, I respected how quick they were able to react and start doing things, and then I'm still seeing them things in motion. I always like to check. I wait about 2 weeks. I'm seeing 2 weeks they still care about this stuff.
Right.
And I say, okay, they're still talking about it. I'm cool with that. But a lot of times we have people they'll start to talk, get the shares, get the likes, and then they back, until they cover me. And then 2 months later, I don't know what the DA is doing, man. I don't know what Gino. It's always on y'all. And I think that's the only thing I think for me with you guys' position, especially yours, because I guess earlier when I said counter, I didn't mean counter far as like y'all are against each other, but I'm thinking counter far the perspective from the outsider looking in. So yeah, I think it was a quote at some point too, where he was like, we lock him up and it's let go. But it's so much more to that process.
Sure.
It's so much more to that process. Whereas I can understand, like I said, maybe y'all short for time. You ain't got time to really break this down on the phone. You doing things middle of the day, whatever. But I feel like the outside people looking in, they see the end result or whatever get publicized. So if you dismiss a case, right, and the headline reads, whatever dismissed, that ain't on you, But
Sure.
granted, they don't know if it was something you don't know why you dismissed it. It could have dismissed because maybe the step before that wasn't done correct way.
Right. I mean, which happens, right? Like, because remember, I told you we have to go through the process of is this case devoid of constitutional issues?
3 steps.
Is there probable cause? And then I can answer my third question, right? So that's a big piece of it. But then also, so when that original article got written, I said to the author, I said, you're bringing me 27 dismissals, right? You don't know about the 270 cases that actually got, approved and went through. Because that's not your story. That's not what you want to talk about, right?
100%.
And like, yeah, it's frustrating because like if I get a conviction, I have to write a press release, okay, for anybody to cover it. But if I dismiss a case or lose a case,
Free promotion.
let me tell you, they come to me with it, right? They come to me with it. So, I mean, it's like you just got to know that that's what they're about. But what it is reminding me is that I can't continue to study criminology and study policy and not share that. Like reality is not reality unless it's shared. And so I need to be out and talking to people about why it makes more sense to have a community partner deal with a drug case than to have a court system do it, right? Why it makes more sense to use our limited resources on violent crime and sex crimes than to spin our wheels out on cases where we can't make a safety benefit, right? And so I've got to be saying those things and kind of showing the receipts, or else people don't know, right? And I can't blame anybody for not knowing because no one else is literally paid to know,
Right.
and so that's the piece. And I know that from a media standpoint, sensational stories and headlines are what sells, and I get that that's a business. I think it makes the point that we should have a public, a strong public news system and public media system. But for sure, being able to communicate and educate around why certain policies make the best sense, that's part of my job too. And to the extent I'm not doing enough of that, I need to step it up.
Now you just said something about the having a strong media coverage. I want to ask you that because I consider myself media. I want to ask you, like, from your standpoint, like, what would you guys? And I'm saying you guys, I'm talking about you and all elected officials that that get articles written on and get talked about. What would you like from us, like as media, when we covering things that involve you guys, whether it's decision making, whether it's relationship, whether it's a case or whatever the case may be, like, what would be the best for you guys, like, as far as how we cover it?
Call balls and strikes, just middle of the road, starting with curiosity versus an answer that you're trying to get confirmation bias on, right? And so if you're seeking the truth, which ultimately that's the job of a prosecutor, right? It's not my job to say, prove this guy guilty. It is find the truth and then help either a judge or a jury recognize what the truth is. In the same way, if the media would approach it that way and say, I don't know what Jared Williams's drug case policy is, let me find out. Let me ask questions. Let me learn about the process. I invited that author to come to my office and actually see what the process looks like because I thought it was important for there to be some education around this. That was not accepted, right? That I didn't get taken up on that offer. If you start from a place of let's just tell the truth and let's be fair and balanced, that's all I can ask. I don't need the refs to win me the game. I just need them to play fair.
I like that. I do want to say something though, like, not that I'm that guy, whatever. I would like to be taken up on that offer. I would like to see that process if that's still a thing.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know what day. You can tell me off air, of course, but I'm always curious to see that the behind the scenes things of what goes on. I think I did the coroner earlier this year, and he kind of gave me like a little behind the scenes tour of what goes on and how
That's
the
heavy.
case. It was I was done with the interview. Then I had the tour, and I was like, I said, the body being here. He said, yeah. I said, I never knew that. He said, yeah, there's one right here now. I said, I do not want to. I don't want. I'm fine. I don't want to walk next to that room.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm just curious on that. And I think even I asked that question because I think it's important, especially with the heavy presence of media, even with independent media now, which are probably not the best sometimes because it's so many rules that we just don't follow. And I'm saying we because they are me. We don't follow. And like you said, it's getting the facts. It's not having a lot of times you question someone or you call someone with a story already in mind. And if you get the right words in the right order,
I just want to pick this here and take what I can. And
it's like, oh yeah, we won, we good. Because they already had a story in mind already.
so in a jury trial, the lawyer who's direct examining the witness has to ask open-ended questions. I can't suggest an answer. I can't say, you did this and that, right? Like during a direct examination of a witness that I'm presenting to the jury, I've got to ask fair, balanced, open questions. And of course, I'm trying to get to my part of the story, but at least I'm not allowed to direct them or lead them in a way.
Yeah.
Now on cross-examination, that's a hostile witness typically, or someone that I did not put on the stand. I'm allowed to lead. I'm allowed to ask what I want, right? And I can nitpick and I can go and I can pull out what I want and try and trick you into something. We need more direct examination and less cross-examination, right? In cross-examination, I don't really care what your answer is. I'm trying to get my point across to the jury. Direct examination, I'm trying to expose the truth.
Yeah. I like that. I'm curious to ask you this though, like how much of what some media may write, cover, try to infer, do you think is possibly like kind of behind the scenes stuff too? Because as for me or some media that's not in the end, maybe we just starting out, or I do so many different things. I don't just do politics. So sometimes I'm around it, sometimes I'm not. I might do sports for a whole month, might do arts for a whole month, and get back to politics. Sure. But you got some that's just strictly politics. So they have these strong relationships. And I just wonder, like, whereas, y'all might have a good relationship, not just even you and the sheriff, but all elected officials. I can talk about the commissioners and the mayor. It's a bunch of stuff. It's a bunch of like fights they kind of try to set up, And but I do wonder like how much of it is them trying to set it up versus it just being stuff sent to them, and it's like, okay, we just gonna run with it now,
I really don't know because I'm not a typical. Most politicians in the local sense, right? Like, if you are a commissioner, that's usually not your full-time job, or if you are, some other type of official where you're not running an office. It's really hard to have the time to do the job you've been elected to do. Like, for instance, I believe part of the reason Congress doesn't do anything of value is because they spend so much time running for office. They're running every 2 years, right? In the same way, like I've got actual work to do, so I just don't have time to do the politics in that same way. So if I wanted to do let me set up a story, that seems like so much work for so little gain that I'm sure some people play politics that way, but it's just not really my reality. It's not something I get to see a front row seat to because frankly, I don't have the time, and I have these rules that my bar license depends on that keeps me from saying certain things in the media. Like that's the one thing about my job particularly. I'm the only elected official who has a separate governing body that's dictating whether I can do my job in the Georgia bar, and they put rules on me about what I can say in the public space.
But you saying that put a lot into perspective as well, because I'm in media. I'm not gonna lie. You hear stuff, of course, but like if it's not to me, I always feel like then I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But the people I know, like I talk to like the Ben Hassans and stuff, and when they have conversations and stuff, it's always on the up and up with everybody. So like this the stuff that gets back to me is always up and up stuff. Anything that's like negative is normally anybody in media would tell you it's normally from a fake page. Like that's just be honest. Always from a fake page is like, all right, move on because I can't even corroborate that. You're not even a real person. So like, how can I say your information is real? But you mentioned something that I thought was important. The full time and part time jobs, like elected officials. I think I agree with you. I don't think we talk about that enough as well. That's even for commissioners for the most part. That's technically speaking supposed to be a part time job, which
Right.
it's blasphemy to me. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm like, what you mean? The rules is the rules, I guess. But I don't know how. I'm like, so I look at somebody. That's why I commend Jordan Johnson a lot. I look at somebody like him, like, so he doing all of that, and it's supposed to be a part-time job.
He's working a lot harder than what he's getting paid for. I know that.
Yeah, and that's well, I ain't getting. That's another thing. I'm like the pay. People always say, you should run, you should run. When people see you as a leader, they want you to do leadership things. But I'm like, I got a family. Like, I can't do that. I can't.
Which is crazy to me. Like, why would you want first of all, the thought that running a government is a part-time job is just
Insane.
asinine, right? But then two, why would you not want the most quality candidates? I don't mean candidates in a political sense. I mean candidates for the job,
Right.
To put themselves out there, right? Like it should not only be people who are self-made millionaires or have 2 different retirements who feel like they can devote the time and the energy into that job. I mean, we have full-time issues. We need full-time people working on them.
And to add on what you're saying as well, because I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said, and I think that's something that kind of sets Augusta back in a sense, because then your candidates are only, how many self-made millionaires do everybody know? It's like it's a few, and then the ones that care enough or care at all to actually lead a district, to better a district. Or they out for self. So you got some people that's elected officials, they out for photo ops. They're there for every ribbon cutting, but they ain't doing no work. So you get a lot of that. And I think it go back to what you were saying. Like I think it's kind of asinine to have someone be over a district, a big district at that, and think that that pay and that part time. Because what you gonna do in the meantime? Like, so what do you do when your real job is saying, hey, we need you extra hours now. So
Right.
what do we do? Because I know for me, I'm a manager and I'm a store manager, and I know when I hire a full-time associate or my assistant manager, if they had a second job, but I'm like, hey, we got corporate account, we got this going on, that job just can't get you today. Like
Right.
this is your real job, right?
Right.
So what do you think happens when the commission is a part-time job and it's like, well, I got other things going on right now, or my business needs me,
I mean, you got to worry about, can I feed my family?
Can I feed my family?
Can I keep the rent paid?
And then when you go into the people who have the money, do they have the same level of care for the community? Are they even attached? Like, can they
Can they connect to the people who don't have that much money?
can they connect to them?
Which is most of our community is struggling and doesn't have it, right?
And so a person like that, not that they can't do the job, but their ideology is so disconnected from their constituents' ideology because they working to get what they get. You already there.
Right.
Everything seems easy to you. Oh, just people like that got money. It's just do this and just do that, and that's it. Well, it's like if I could do that, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I wouldn't be living here right now.
I mean, and I was at an event in Allen Homes, and we talked about why is the commission meeting at the time that it is, when everybody's at work.
That's why. That's exactly why.
I mean, if that doesn't tell you exactly, what people think and kind of how this has been set up, I know there's a lot of people who would love to have their voices heard, who have to have their bills paid first, and so they're just not going to show up at that meeting.
Do you have to go to the commission meeting?
Very rarely. I mean, usually when I go, I'm asking for money.
Okay, I like that. I only asked that question because, and I know you can't speak too much on a lot of stuff, but, we have our own opinions of those meetings, not getting into no detail about what happened. I don't, what happened, but even with Q, who was over AUG explained. When we do the live on Tuesdays, this is just telling you, like, our focus at the time when we built it, we were like, okay, well, we'll go live at 8 on Tuesday. But we know it's the commission meeting, but in our mind, we was like, well, that's when people are finally home
Kids might be in the
settling.
bed.
and they can actually pay attention. And like you said, their voices can be heard. And we found that was actually a perfect time. The meeting is over. If the constituents even watch the meeting, but so much going on with those, it's like, well, I watched that, right? But it's like a lot of that. And we felt like even the commissioners can then watch as well, because now you can see what people are saying in the comments, and you can either comment or you can come sit down and be a part of it. That was the mindset. So it's funny you say that, because it's like, why couldn't somebody else think of that? Like, hey, this is probably not the right time for this meeting. Something had to change, But like I said, that's one of those reactive, I guess, processes that we'll have to go to whenever we cross that bridge. But just getting back into, so I do want to ask you a question about like this in Augusta. I know I'm gonna ask you this because you might have the statistics for this. In Augusta versus last year, or maybe years before, what would we rank crime? Is it down or is it up?
Honestly, it's such a misleading kind of stat line anyway, because it suggests that those trends can be changed by quick policy changes. And so I don't know the actual numbers, right? I know the number that we had last year, and if I say we're on track to do less than that, I'm pretty much
Don't do it.
yeah, exactly, right? Like, because we have seen how one weekend can change those numbers drastically. And so this kind of gets to another issue I want to get into. Crime, and especially violent crime, is so sporadic and so situational that it's really hard to study unless you're talking about broad data sets, and if you can have some randomized controlled tests.
Right.
So one of the things that I've been going into the schools and talking about is violent crime prevention and violent crime interruption. And so there's a study from this guy named Jens Ludwig. He's a professor at the University of Chicago. And he wrote this book called Unforgiving Places, and it blew my socks off because he's talking about the brain and how we have these two systems of thinking. We have system one that's like automatic. If I threw this water bottle to you, you would catch it without thinking, I'm going to catch that water bottle. You just do it, right? Whereas you have system two, which is very deliberate, and it's your conscious, rational brain. And his studies over like 30 years have shown him much of violent crime is done as a result of system one breakdowns, right? Meaning that someone, usually a young person, makes a snap decision and they take it to 11 before they really think about it. And that's how most violent crime happens. And here's why that resonates with me. So we had this one week where we were just kicking butt in the DA's office. We had 4 major convictions in the span of a week, right? I'm talking 4 life sentences for murders and some serious violent felonies, right? And so you would think that to anyone rational in Augusta, Richmond County, they would say, maybe we need to chill out on these violent crimes because they putting everybody away for life.
Right.
So then that weekend, we had 2 deaths, a 22-year-old and a 14-year-old. And so what did we get for all that, rah, we locked them up? People aren't listening. The people who are making these decisions, they're not saying, let me commit this violent crime, but only if I have a reasonable chance of not getting caught and I make sure there's no witnesses around. No, they're doing it in broad daylight sometimes because they're mad, they're angry in that moment, and they're letting system one make a decision for them that system two probably would have held back, right? That's why we see so many retaliatory shootings. And so the cities that have had great results in reducing violent crime have adopted crime intervention or crime interruption as a method of finding credible messengers in the community who, when a crime happens, when a violent crime happens, those people who are authentic to the community and not just, a bunch of suits coming into the community, but people who are of and know the community can say, all right, we know who's been impacted. We know what families, perhaps what sets of what gang are implicated, and we're going to go to them and we're going to help them go from system one, I got to retaliate, to system two, let me not make that step, right? Let me perhaps even talk to the officers about what I know about how that crime took place, so that I can get justice, maybe the slow way, but in a way that doesn't put me in prison for the rest of my life. Because that's what's happening. Your system one brain will say, there's nothing worse than my homie getting killed and people thinking that I'm a punk because I didn't retaliate. When in reality, there's nothing worse than your homie getting killed and you sitting in prison because you tried to retaliate.
That's deep. That is deep. And you said that this is called crime interruption.
Yes, violence interruption is the way it's called sometimes.
Okay.
It's specifically, it's a community strategy.
I like what you said when just now. You were saying credible messengers. I think the credible part is super important because anybody can consider themselves a messenger. And you said not just the suits coming in. So when you think of credible messengers, what kind of people are you thinking that could help this?
I won't call names, but when I was on the boulevard this weekend, I met a guy who has been in the prison system, lost a loved one to violent crime, and he's got a real passion for kids in East Augusta, and he wants to see, he's a business owner, he wants to see them take the same path that he did and avoid the path that his loved one went down, right? And so he's someone that, like, when I show up, you can smell prep school all over me, right? But this guy can look you in the eye and you know that what he's talking about, he's coming from places of deep pain, and the decisions and his insight into the world and how it works is not coming from what he read in a book. It's coming from what he's lived every day. And so he and I talked about teaching these kids to make money the slow way, not trying to skip the line and do certain crimes to get your money, because that's how people end up breaking in your door. And either it's the police breaking in your door and they're going to take your money and your freedom, or it's the ops breaking in the door and they're going to take your money and your life. And so I got the guy's number. I said, we've got to connect, because the next time I'm in East Augusta, I'm taking you with me, because they've got to hear it from you. They can't just hear it from me.
And that's why I think it's important to say that how much community work you actually do. And I'm not even saying community work. You're out being a citizen. You know what I'm saying? You're out there and talking to people, because if you even come across him and be like, hey, this is what I need. I need you right here. Just from genuinely just going out there and touching the people and being one with the people and connecting with the community.
I need the help, man. I need the help. We can't do it ourselves. And unfortunately, we're tied up a lot of times in the courtrooms. So we've got to have people who can go to the classrooms.
Yeah.
We got to have people who can get out there.
We're supposed to, well, I might not say it now, but, I did some work earlier this year with Alternative School. I went there and did some episode. I did a podcast since, and talked to some kids there, and was really moved by a lot of them. Like, you could tell a lot of them did not want to be there, did not think that doing what they did would get them there. Some of course didn't care, like, whatever, it's my second time. But for the most part, it's like a lot of them kids just did not want to be there. They hated everything about it. But they understood that every action has a reaction, and you got consequences. But we was on live one day, and I think somebody said, we want y'all to come back to Turner School. And when you say credible messengers, I think the only thing I kind of understand, but I dislike, but I understand it with people wanting to be mentors, is some in schools you can't have a record. If I'm not mistaken, it's something like that. It's something stopping your background. You got to get a background check. And depending on the type of mentor you're looking for, I think sometimes you might need that. Somebody with not the best background. I'm not saying get a sex offender now. I'm not saying that, of course, but I'm saying like a business owner who might have, we got I'm just using his name now because I can use it. I say we got PJ Ware for instance. Kendrick Kings, amazing story.
Yeah.
Kids relate to him. He really was out there doing whatever, this, that, and third. But now he switched it up. Didn't need a bunch of stuff to happen to him, but he also will tell you like, hey, you should take this path. This is why you want to take this path. You'll still get here. It might take a little longer, but you'll still get here. Versus you not ever getting there at all because you're in jail the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so I feel like people like that are needed for some mentor because some kids not gonna listen to you at all unless they know you've been where they've been or been where they are.
Sure. And then we have to break down the barriers to getting people with life experience before these kids who need to see someone with life experience that they can recognize and identify with.
True.
Because there's no substitute for authenticity, and there's no substitute for that kid being able to see that someone really means what they're saying. And also shout out to PJ. I'm coming to get my plate, brother.
Shout out to PJ.
But I do some work with the Manhood Tour, and I remember when that was just a group of guys inviting kids from the neighborhood to come sit at Jamestown and share a meal and talk about, the struggles that we all have. Like I've seen it kind of grow into something so outstanding, but it's like we have to go to where the kids are. We can't expect them to come to us.
I like that, man. I like the clap. I like that. That's 100% true. You got to go where they at.
Right.
That's the only way.
So, that's a lifelong lesson because my dad runs a faith-based ministry, and they used to do block parties in the different neighborhoods. But they would set up a block party outside of Underwood, and because you have that big green space, and nobody shows up. You take it inside, everybody shows up, right? Like It's just literally you got to go to the people and not expect them to come to you. And kids are especially that way. Kids need to see that you care consistently.
Yeah.
Right? Not like you came and read to us and got a photo up and then, see you next year. But like legitimately, I'm going to be consistent about caring about you and being in your life. And so there are a lot of untold heroes who are doing that work right now, and they're never going to get a spotlight. They're never going to, have their story told on the news, but they're literally saving lives.
Definitely agreed. One thing I can say, I thought about that, like people coming there and taking a photo up and going about their business. I know one thing I did when I did go to attorney school is I posted, clips and stuff. If I could tag somebody I know could help that kid, I tagged them, but I also, we follow them and stuff. And I remember a kid needing a ride somewhere, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and take you here. Or I heard he had an issue in school. Hey, everything all right? Hey, call me real quick. Let me talk about the issue you had in school. Let's talk about ways we could have went about it a different way because the way you handled it probably wasn't the best way. And just still building that rapport. They kids, they're gonna make mistakes, but it's like you consistently being there. It's like, okay, he cared about me. I think even mentors, I love when I hear mentor stories of, a kid calling a mentor about something that has nothing to do with the mentorship program per se, but they felt so safe enough and they felt like you were so genuine enough that they thought to reach out to you for some other problem they might have. I thought that I like to hear those stories. I like to see those kind of mentors be a part of the community. I think it's important, and I think we got to get out of the mindset, especially for young black men, that there's only a certain amount of ways to make it out the hood. I don't like that idea. I know it sounds cool to say like, oh, it's sports, selling drugs or whatever the case may be, but it's like, no, you could do a lot of things. You can go to school. You can
trade school, labor
right?
unions.
You could start at 14, chilling at the mechanic shop and learn how to do, oil changes, change tires, and change spark plugs, and then start there. And then you build that base foundation, and now you change the engines. You fixing transmissions. Like, there's so much stuff you can do outside of those things. Like, I shout out to it's a guy named Trevor. He went to Richmond. I don't know why he went there, but he went to Richmond, a big deal. But Trevor Welcher, he said something on a podcast one time. He said, you can go pro at anything. And I thought that was amazing to say because we think just basketball, we think just sports,
right?
These high paying jobs, but it's millions of dollars online and stuff like this. But You could be a professional mechanic. You could be a professional podcaster. You could be a professional news anchor. You could be a professional so many things you could be professional at.
You know who's making millions? HVAC.
Oh my
It's
God.
October and it's still hot,
You
right?
know what I'm saying?
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
those skills are, I mean, look, no matter how rich you are, you're going to shell out a lot of money to have somebody come fix your car, come fix your AC, come rebuild something in your house, because most people don't know how to do that anymore. I mean, like, there are real opportunities to build wealth that don't look like a 4-year college degree and some master's studies and whatever else. Usually the people with the most education are the brokest ones.
Yeah.
So-
we all in debt.
Wow. So, I mean, I encourage that a lot with these young people, is like, find the trades, find a way to learn these things. I had a guy working at my house, and he had his 4-year-old with him, cutest kid ever. And I'm like, I said to the kid, I was like, you don't know that your dad's making you a millionaire right now. Just by having you with him and teaching you, you know, what wrench you're supposed to use, what tool you put here, how to measure a piece of wood precisely so that it fits in this, you know, spot the way it's supposed to. Like, and not everybody has a dad who can do that for them, or will, but there are so many opportunities to get out there and learn this stuff.
It go back to what I said earlier, which is why I guess I was kind of stunned by that whole conversation I had a bit on mine for a week. But youth development, because it's something simple as that. Like, you know what? I'm gonna just get a bunch of trade people that's professionals in their field, talk to the kids. You'd be amazed at how a kid respond when I tell them how much money they can make just from changing their toilet, and how long it actually takes once you know what you're doing,
Right.
and how quick you can make that much money in that hour. And you'd be amazed. They'd be like, hold on. Tell me more about it. Because they didn't know, because that's not something we highlight. We highlight 20 years of playing basketball and hopefully make it to the NBA. We don't highlight the whole, you know, the percentage of people that make it to the NBA from college.
Yeah.
We don't highlight that. It's
Where's
like,
the 30 for 30 for Larry Jones, you know?
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just think it's the awareness part. I think, but for you, like, in what you do, and just the DA's office, like, you know, we talk about, you know, crime and whether it's up, down, this, that, and third, but how impactful is it, or would it be, saving the youth?
Man, it would be generationally transformational if we could invest early. And when I say early, I literally mean when they're a baby.
First 1,000 days, you said earlier.
First 1,000 days, right? Because if they're not getting nourished mentally, spiritually, physically during those first 3 years of their lives, they are so far off base when they get to pre-K, kindergarten, right? And we're asking schools to pick up the slack for sometimes 5 years of neglect, and then they get them, and they only get them for a third of the time, right? So we're asking our schools to do something that, I mean, we're asking them to be magicians, really. And that's not fair to any of the kids. And again, I think if we would recognize that all of the crime is downstream of other bad policies that have been made, policies that take manufacturing jobs away, policies that take educational opportunities away, policies that strip healthcare and mental health care resources out of the community, policies that that unfairly remove people from society who don't have to be. If we could undo all of that, and really I should say unscrew all of that, and put things in place that empower kids and families to be whole and to work one job and actually make a living from it, and to live in a society where they're not having to worry about getting sick or worry about needing to take care of an elderly loved one or a special needs loved one, right? Like if we could actually show some compassion on the front, like trying to get people to be compassionate about felons, that's the fight that I've been fighting for 4 years. just be compassionate about human beings at the earliest stage, and then we won't have as many felons. We won't have a need for as many prisons. We won't have a need for as much public safety apparatus, right? Because if you take care of the public, we're all more safe.
Yeah. This is on a tangent. I just asked him because you mentioned it earlier. Like, how would if a school watching this now or somebody, like, how do they get in contact with you to even get you to speak at the school? Like, is that something you do, or they have to set it up? Like, how does that work?
Sure. So if you want to reach me, you can email me. If you want to actually make sure I get where I'm supposed to be, you need to email a lady named Sharice Davis, who is my comms director, or my community engagement director. And she's the one who helps me kind of manage all the different places we need to be. So like you mentioned Richmond. I was at Richmond 2 weeks ago.
Seen that, yeah, you did a good job there. Heard they was pretty engaged too. That's why I heard it was pretty dope.
Yeah. So that was actually coming off. I mean, that was probably like the day or two after the mall murder, and so that was the right time to be talking to young people about System 1 and System 2. Right. But that's a really good way. So emailing is usually the best way because we can put it right into the calendar. But I mean, you can call to 706-821-1140 or cdavis@augustaga.gov.
And I just asked that question just because like I know that you have people watching this, like you don't not saying you don't do interviews because you obviously do them, but they only put out what they want to put out for interview.
Yeah.
For me, I'm putting it all out. So as people watch it and they get to hear you talk, hear you speak, I just want to make sure that anybody watching that's around kids, whether you a parent, whether you a teacher, whether you just a neighborhood mentor, they know how to get in contact with that office to get you to come speak to the kids at a school or at an event or something like that.
Sure.
I think that's super important. With you having to deal with Augusta, or not deal with, but lead Augusta and Burke County, how do you balance the two? Like, how do you balance, Burke County and, because it's two different entities, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Man,
I'm supposed to interview that sheriff too at some point. It's on me. I dropped the ball. I didn't reach out, but
yeah,
I want to.
I mean, so it is absolutely two different worlds, different sets of issues. Burke County is a lot smaller, but that means that issues can be amplified. I just love the people out there, man. I was in Keysville this weekend at the Coming Home Parade. Yeah, man. And just, man, it's just so much love out there. And even the people that don't rock with you, for the most part, they're still respectful of you in a way that you don't always see in the larger cities. But I just, your question was how to balance it.
Right.
I know that I could do a better job of it, but really, our circuit is 90% funded by Richmond County and 10% funded by Burke County, and that usually works out about the workload as well. And so we have, and we literally just tried a case there, I want to say in the past 2 weeks. We had court there last Friday. And so we're working out there, but it is a different, somewhat slower pace. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but like the terms of court are longer out there.
Okay,
so,
got you.
So you don't have as much turnover of like the grand jury and things like that. And so one of the things that I did was Burke County didn't have an office. They didn't have a full-time DA presence. So I put 2 of my staff members out there full-time, and then our trial teams will go float in when needed.
Okay.
And so that way Burke County does, like, a Burke County sheriff's deputy should not have to drive to Augusta to consult on a case, right? Now they can do that from where they are. And so we have an office located at the courthouse in Burke County, big, beautiful, new Burke County Judicial Center.
This is a question I didn't have, but I don't know. I think as you're talking, I think about stuff. But you've been in office how many years now?
So I'm wrapping up my 5th year So I'm in the first year of my second term.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just if it's a lot, how many terms do y'all get? Y'all just keep going, or is it a certain amount of terms?
How many terms?
Yeah.
There's no term limits.
Okay, so you can just keep being a DA if you keep getting voted, is whatever.
I mean, yeah, eventually it'll be time to find
I got
some new
you.
young buck that
I
wants
got
to
you.
push it even further, for sure.
I asked that question. I'm glad you said that, but I asked that question to, because we do some things on with AUG explaining. What would you say for yourself? Like, if you could, I know it's probably hard to do it, probably on the spot, but like, if you had to grade yourself, what grade would you give yourself as a DA?
If I would grade myself, I'd probably be the harshest grader of myself. So,
And it could be in comparison. It could be in comparison to like maybe in the past, maybe the work you've done.
it is a pass fail, and I give myself a pass. And the reason I say that is this, right? So obviously, the politician in me wants to give myself an A+. And the self-doubting, insecure human being that I am wants to give myself an F-. And I imagine that people who work with me might have their own opinions. Genuinely, I have to give myself grace in recognizing that what I set out to do, I don't have control over all the levers. Meaning, I ran for change. And I ran because I really want to see us have a more fair justice system, a more efficient justice system, but most importantly, a more effective justice system. And while I've been able to make some big strides in my office, ultimately, I don't control the whole justice system, right? I'm only allowed to be as progressive as some judges will let me. I'm only allowed to be as efficient as some judges in court structure will let me. And so there's definitely more that we could do. And I think we could push this needle further. I'll go back to drug cases as an example. I would love for someone who's arrested for a user possession drug case to immediately get screened for substance use disorder, to be referred to treatment services, and to not sit in jail just by virtue of being poor. But unfortunately, it is the reality that some people, because they don't have the resources, will sit in jail. Even if they have a bond, they can't make it. And they'll sit sometimes 7, 11, 30 days. Sometimes they'll sit longer than that.
Yeah.
And every time that we do that, we've even further destabilized someone's life. And so while that's not in my necessary control, right? Like that doesn't necessarily fit the bill of my job. And I don't run the jail, nor do I run the treatment services. I know that we can work together to make that a reality. We just got to step up. And so that's the part of me that would say, you don't get to give yourself an A when you still got people sitting in jail who don't need to be, right? You don't get to give yourself an A when you still got people who are sitting in jail on more serious crimes and haven't gotten their trial yet. And so what I think is, while I'm doing a lot and building a lot and improving a lot in my office and within my sphere of influence, there's got to be some circuit-wide change in order for us to continue to build the type of system that we all want to have. And that's unpopular to say because there's some people who might feel targeted by that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if all you want to do is the same thing you've been doing for the past 30 years, get out of the way. Get out of the way, because this community wants better and demands better. And maybe what I should do is be more vocal and more transparent with the community about why the change that I said we were going to bring hasn't gotten here fully and as swiftly as I thought it could be.
I speak on a lot of things you just said. I think I don't think people realize how much of like lottery a lot of things can be. And when I say lottery, I'm thinking about like what's the chances of everything clicking to make a, a idea, become be fruitful. So you might have an idea and you might have a plan for it to work, right? But there's obviously barriers in the way of that because we got this thing called checks and balances, which really is like, can I succeed or not? You know what I'm saying? It depending on how you're looking at it. And whereas I understand the checks and balances because it's America, I get it. But that's all across the board, from down to where you got the mayor, commissioners, to sheriff, DA, to DA judges, to it's so many different people that got different powers over whether or not this can be done or X, Y, Z can be done. And I always tell people, I say, what's the chances of everything just clicking so it doesn't work? It don't work that way. And that's the hard thing about politics because one person, any entity, no, I ain't name no particular job, can do everything right and have the right mindset and have the right plan and the right team and the right passion and right time and everything. But if the checks and balances that's around them don't see that or don't are on the same wavelength or are quote unquote in the way, and they know that, sometimes they'll just be in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned getting out the way, but some people know like, well, I can be in this person's way, so I'll do that.
Right. I mean, and then the response is not, well, let me just lay down and not fight anymore, because that's what they want. So the issue is, if you're not going to be about justice, and if you're not going to be about change for the better and improving our system, then maybe it's time to stop being so nice and political and just speak out, right? And speak truth to the powers that be, man. It's frustrating because I remember when if the DA made a recommendation for a sentence, that they would be respected and that would be accepted. And I see how that's not the case often in certain courtrooms, or when people's motives are challenged, when they're just trying to move the docket along. And look, I recognize that I'm one of those people who's always looking to improve. Like, I'm always looking for the thing we could do better. And some people are really comfortable just doing what they've been doing, right? Like, it might not even be a place of animus. They just don't really, they're comfortable. They don't want to do anything else. But here's the deal. We've got to recognize where we are. We've got a jail that's full of people that are deserving of a trial or a resolution to their case. And the system, as we constructed it, does not get them to court fast enough. It does not get them to whatever justice looks like in a meaningful timeline, right? Such that even if they did the thing, punishment might be so far in the future that they can't even tie what they did to what the punishment was, or their lives have been destroyed in the process. And so one of the things that I wish we had was a specialized court system, meaning right now every judge handles every type of case from marijuana to murder, right? And here's the deal. The murder case is always going to take precedence over the marijuana case, right? So if you want the marijuana case to get heard, you're waiting behind the murders and the rapes and the shootings and all that. Let me use a better example, because usually if it's a marijuana case, it's not making it to court. But let me use an example of like entering auto. We talked about this last time. There's something inherently violative about someone went up in my car, right? Or someone went up in my home.
Yeah.
But if I'm the victim of a theft like that, or that invasion, I'm still waiting behind the more serious cases, right? And so why do I, as a victim of crime, have to wait 6-7 years to have my case resolved? Well, if we had a courtroom that handled property crimes exclusively, you wouldn't have that issue, right? Because the murder case would be in the violent crimes courtroom, and the rape would be in the sex crimes courtroom, and the narco trafficking cases could be heard in the narco trafficking courtroom,
Right.
and property. And then I think also most cases aren't going to need trials in the first place. But when I ask for a sentencing date on a case and I'm told a date 3 weeks or more in advance, like, come on, someone might be sitting in jail and they're going to sit an extra 3 weeks. If someone wants to plead guilty, they should be able to do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so maybe we need a courtroom that's devoted to taking resolutions all the time. These aren't novel things. It's just never been done here. And there's always this resistance to do anything different than what's already always been done. I think that hurts us. To me, so I'm going to go on a trip tomorrow. Actually, I'm driving to Vanderbilt to their project on prosecutorial policy, and I applied for and was accepted into this program where they're going to help us build a response, a solution to the problem of people sitting in jail awaiting trial. Like, how do we build a courtroom that's actually going to work efficiently enough that people don't wait in jail years and years and years for their case to be heard? I cannot grade myself or anyone highly until we fix that problem. Remember that these are people who are accused of crime, not convicted.
Guilty. Yeah.
And again, we're also talking about real victims, you know? So these are people who also deserve their day. They're not sitting in jail necessarily, but they deserve to see what happened to their loved one be dealt with. And I hate explaining to a victim, I'm very sorry about your case. I know that it means the world to you, but it's just one of 2,500 felonies that we opened this year. And we probably won't see that case get tried until 2027. That's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so I really want to change that.
And then I just to add to what you're saying, I think one thing to think about as well is, like, it's no shade to nobody, but it's how violent the jail is here. So imagine someone not only being in there but having to wait longer
Yeah.
and deal with that.
Yeah.
The things I hear.
And here's, I'm going to go back to being angry for a second. Another thing that's frustrating is, like, the police force and the jail and prosecutors and prisons should not be our mental health facility and our mental health resources in the community.
I agree.
Like, the fact that we don't have any meaningful and robust mental health response for those who need it is so frustrating, because so many of the crimes that happen could be avoided if we could put somebody somewhere safe and help them get restored to the way they need to be. But the barriers to get someone there is so hard, and there's not any beds at any state facility. And so we have punted on that issue, and we've just made it a crime problem because we can always build another prison, another jail. That's unacceptable too. And it creates conditions in that jail where if you have a mental health diagnosis and you are in crisis, you're usually deteriorating in the jail. And if you don't, but you are impacted by those who do, that creates conditions in the jail that are unsafe. And so let me be very clear. I think that Sheriff Brantley and his team are doing an outstanding job with an untenable problem, right? Like, an untenable problem. But we need to recognize that these, again, are the results of bad policies that have led us to an approach that says, hey, homeless guy is going to end up getting picked up and put in jail, and he's going to sit there. Why? Because we have nowhere else to put him. And there's no meaningful way for me to put them in a specialty program when they're not stable enough to even have housing or transportation, right? We've got to answer these problems. We cannot keep punting them and just making them criminal problems.
First of all, clap it up again for you. You give some great answers and good insight to a lot of the stuff that people don't have insight to. When you break down the who, what, where's, and whys of why cases and why things may not work. But you mentioned something like even with the sentencing and stuff like that, and remembering how it was a time when the DA requested something. So I have to ask, like amongst or whatever, like the Augusta politics. I don't know what word to use. Peers, uh, uh, co-workers. I don't know. Like, would you consider yourself a likable guy, a liked guy, right? Not likable, because I think you're likable. A liked guy. And I'm only curious of that question because I know earlier you were saying how and even last episode, not that it matters, but I think like you was like you went to I can't think trying to think of high school right now. It's on the tip of my tongue, but you went to prep school, and and so I wonder, a lot of times, especially in a city like Augusta, where I feel like I love the city of Augusta first and foremost, but I do think, to your point, some people have the mindset if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but it's broke, but they don't. It's not broke to them.
It's not broke to them.
So think about that. Think about that mindset. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But you have a bunch of people saying it's broken, but because a certain demographic is saying it's not broken. I mean, I'm talking about age. This is a city of they don't like change. So a lot of time when you have these newcomers, younger people, energetic, wanting to get things done. Just let me cook for a minute. With the teachers, I see that a lot amongst teachers. I speak to a lot of teachers, and some of the best teachers, I feel so bad for them because they maybe don't have the money. They schooling hurts, whatever. Like they can't get certified, so they're not certified teacher. But within that school, the students really take to that teacher, but they're not certified. They got a certain time, and then you out. You can't if you don't make your degree by that, you were gone. That's it, right? Those struggles they have, what I'm hearing, and even people that are certified, is a teacher who's been around for a long time, thinking that they're doing too much. It's like, hey, you doing too much. It's not that you're doing too much. You're just doing so much that now I'm going to be expected to do more. I'm not doing more. So I'm going to get in your way. I'm going to make it hard for you. And like you said earlier, I'm going to make you lay down. I'm going to make you to like, you don't want to do more. Or leave the school, either one. And I've seen both happen. Leave the school and then they just, or quit. And I see so many struggles with the teachers. And we talking about teachers, and mind you, we talking on this whole podcast about saving the youth. And I always say, well, how can the youth get saved if the teachers have an issue with a teacher being a good teacher, right? So I say that to say that, put that in perspective. And then I think about the political aspect of things when I think about constituents. And it's like, well, how can we save the youth or save anything around in the city if, we have disdain because someone wants to do more, someone wants to be innovative, someone has a plan in place to. It may take a little extra work. Yes, you may have to get, in the field a little bit. Maybe you're not used to that because you haven't been in the field for a long time. I don't know. It may take some changes. I know we did it this way, but we walked left for a long time. We might have to walk right for like maybe 2 years or some, but they don't want to do that. May have to take a step back in order to take 2 heavy steps forward. Trust me, it's going to work. We don't want to do that. Then the political side of things, of course, is like, well, if I'm not the one that came up with it, I don't like it. Or if XYZ came up with it, I also don't like it. I don't need to know what it is. Just tell me that person's name is on this whatever docket, bill, law, whatever. I know already I don't like it. You don't have to say nothing at all. If that person's name is on there, I do not like it. Count me out for it. And so I think about how can we even do things like move forward. And that's a small scale that I'm talking about. But think about that and think about the youth. How can we even help them when we're bickering and doing nonsense, amongst each other in professional sense and professional settings?
Sure. So, man, you just said a whole word.
I try.
In a lot of ways. So your first question was, am I liked? And the answer to that is like, is Jared fun to be around? Sure. I'm a great time. But people don't like when you start pushing the needle, when you start saying we need to do something different, or when you start calling out when things aren't right that people otherwise weren't going to pay attention to, right? And so, of course, people don't like that. And there are people in the courthouse who never wanted to see me in the seat that I'm in. And so even though those people might have been good friends of mine up until that point, they don't really like the reality of how that's gone, right? Because they were comfortable with how things were going. And so I will tell you that to me, it's not important to me if you like me or not, because I prayed a long time about whether I was even going to run for this seat. And I knew in a very clear-eyed way why I was doing it and for whom I was doing it. And I can't focus on being popular or being liked or not pissing off judges with the plea offer that I make or with the stance that I take on certain crimes, because I'm not here for them. I'm here for the community. And I know what the community wants and needs, and I know what the policies that actually help are versus the ones that we've been doing for the past 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not going to sacrifice doing the work for the pats on the back from people who didn't want me in the seat in the first place, right? I'll just never be deluded by the fact that, you know, so-and-so wants you here. To your point about how do we change anything or how do we improve anything if there are always people in the way? Purposefully, yeah. You've got to be intentional about moving them out of the way. And look, I'm all for let's make a deal. I'm all for if we can avoid a trial, let's find a way for us to work to a resolution that works, right? But at the end of the day, the reason I had the respect I had as a defense attorney or an ADA was I will tee it up. I will go to trial. And that's the energy I'm going to bring to it. Like, I'll always try to resolve a conflict, but I'm not afraid to throw hands. And that is the way that you have to lead as well. If you are a change agent and you want to see progress, try your best to work with the people and make it work with the players that are there. But if you're going to court and learning that those people would rather lock up nonviolent drug offenders than focus on the issues that really matter, then maybe it's time to report that back to the community and let them do their work, right? Maybe it's time to call out when people would have somebody sit in jail for 15, 18, 24 months on charges that they shouldn't be. Maybe it's time to say, you'd rather go on a trip than have this court hearing that we're supposed to, and now someone sits in jail another 3 weeks, and that's not right.
That's
and
a big one.
if you can't do that, then you don't need to be in the seat. Like, it's the biggest blessing that I had came last year when I was run against, because it reminded me that I'm not here for myself, and I have zero power in keeping myself in this office. Like, I have zero agency in that. It is God putting me here and keeping me here as long as he wants, so long as I'm doing work for the kingdom. And the second I start trying to preserve my own skin or my own stature amongst people with power, I'm sure that's the moment I'll get replaced. And so it was helpful to me to go through the tribulation, a very hard, dark, campaign, so that I could be refreshed in my understanding of, one, the community is with me, and two, the work still needs to be done. Playing nice didn't keep me from getting run against. So why worry about it now? Go out there and get what the community needs. Yeah, I had a conversation with Commissioner Hassan because I had some words about kind of how I felt about the way things were going in criminal justice specifically. And he said, I usually would counsel you not to say things like that, but I just realized you're going to say what you have to say. And I mean, that's really what it has to be, is the people who are in power have to speak on behalf of those who aren't, or else we're going to keep having the same problems we have, which is nobody trusts politicians because they get in office and they don't actually do the work, or they spend all their time maintaining their seats and not enough time doing the work of the people.
I definitely agree with everything you said. And I think I like that you broke it down. I think that was really, really insightful and important. Yeah, man, it's a lot of work to be done though. A lot of work to be done. There's so many different ways you can tackle things. And I think, like I said, one thing I always try to point across to people is sometimes we think someone or some entity isn't doing a good job because we're not seeing certain kind of results. But I do want more people to be vocal of some of the barriers that's in their way. So maybe talking about things you're doing, but what's in your way, because sometimes that being public might help sometimes as well. Maybe not for you per se, because there's a lot of power people, they don't care what we think half the time. So it's like whatever, right? But for a lot of elected officials and things in your way, I feel like just speak about it. But I know it's so hard in politics because there's certain things you can't even say. You can't just come out and be like, hey, I don't like this because this you can't. It's like it's not a thing to do in politics.
It's easy to talk about physical barriers, right? Like when my attorneys were making $50,000 and $60,000 less than attorneys in other circuits, right? It was easy to talk about how I don't have a full staff to do the work because our salaries are half of what these other offices are offering, right? It's hard to call out people who are the barriers, right? Because naturally, if I tell you so-and-so is unfair in the way they sentence people or uncaring about people who suffer from substance use disorder or whatever it may be, then now I'm inviting the political blowback of their
100%.
camp and their side, right? And so that discourages people from saying what they really mean. And I guess the point I was trying to make earlier is try your best to work with the people who are in the seats. But once they prove to you that they are unwilling to do what needs to be done, and it's coming in between you and what you promised the people you would get done, then it becomes your duty to try and find their replacement. Or I don't think the king making is the right terminology for it. It's going to the people and being honest about what the challenges are and then letting them find who to replace them.
I like that. Definitely like that as well. Yeah, man, this was good. We said a lot of stuff. I think I just like the conversation. It's just subtle. I'm able to get things across. It ain't like, I'm here for clickbait or I have a agenda. I like just hearing the summary. I like hearing the intricate parts of your job. I like hearing the things you encounter, the people you encounter, and why and how it happened. You going to your homecoming. I just saw that 20 minutes before you came in here. I'm like, what are you doing here? But now it makes sense. You tell me, hey, I saw such and such. That happened, and I'm thinking about getting this guy to do some more, advocacy with me. I like all of that stuff. I think that's important. I liked my favorite thing so far about this is liking how you thought about the grading. I think that was important. I feel like that's the question I should ask more elected officials. I feel like I'm gonna ask that question more now. So thank you, Jared. If they don't like you now, they ain't like you. But I don't care. Thank you a lot. Thank you. Clap it up for you. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I feel like the way you answered it was good. Like it wasn't like you answering based on what I did. You're answering based off what else I could do that I'm not doing. And I think that's super important for elected official, just a leader in general. So yeah, man. I appreciate you guys stopping by. I appreciate the conversation, man.
Thank you for having me.
The second time, I want to clap it up for you. Second time, man, he came by himself. Just a regular guy, man. Just regular. Just came in, spoke to everybody, sat down, drank some water, and had a good time, and I appreciated that last time. I appreciated it this time, and definitely, rooting for you and wanting the best for you. Stay strong. This is a hard media game for some people, and you're one of them. So stay strong, definitely, and I just wish and hope that people, when I start to put some of the stuff out, they watch this in its entirety and really, really get to know some of the work you're trying to do and the work you've done, and then your ideology behind a lot of the things you're doing. Because I think people, you hear, quote unquote, soft on crime, and they say it as if it's derogatory. But they don't say what kind of crime. They don't specify none of that stuff. They say soft on crime, and then when you see crime, the first thing people say is, "It's the DA."
Look, man. So let me tell you, if I can,
No,
I just
go
want to
ahead.
speak to that too. So the people who are on that soft on crime narrative, right? Like those people have no understanding of like what's actually happening in the courtrooms. So for instance, in 2019, the DA's office had a 48% record at trial. That's less than a coin flip's chance of getting justice if you're a victim of crime in Richmond County, right? Like that was the tough on crime prosecutor was losing more than half the time. So then when we start winning because we're focused and I'm putting attorneys whose whole job is going after violent offenders or going after sexual predators, and we start putting away a serial rapist like Daryl Newsom or putting away serious violent offenders, they don't talk about any of that, right? Like, and so that's why I don't spend a lot of time like in the media defending myself or in the comments defending myself, because like these people don't know, and it's like you can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. Like they see me and they see the party I'm affiliated with, and the fact that I believe kids belong in classrooms, not courtrooms or caskets, and they say that's soft. But I mean, look, I know the team that I've assembled at that office and the work that they're doing and the amount of ass that they are kicking when it comes to the courtroom. And I'm like, you can't hurt my feelings with stuff like that, right? There's this lady that left a comment under something. I don't even remember what the article was about, but her comment was like, he's affiliated with the gangs and just wants to let the
That's
gangs.
crazy.
I'm like, yo, all right, like,
We got to cut it out. Come
like
on.
literally, this lady doesn't know that there wasn't a gang unit in the DA's office before I created it.
Oh my
you know,
God.
like she just doesn't know that,
Yeah.
and she's never going to, because even if I told her, she wouldn't listen. Right? I remember the first time I was running, I still had to win Columbia County. So I was out and I was holding signs. I was actually putting up one of my big signs in Columbia County. And there was this guy that was running like the Trump merchandise stuff, like right where I was putting my sign. And so I talked with him and I told him about my dad, who's a pastor and runs a faith-based ministry. I told him about the school I went to and kind of the role faith played in my decision to run for district attorney. And at the end of that conversation, we shook hands, and he said, "Well, I'm never going to vote for you because you're a Democrat, so you're going to hell."
Jesus.
And I'm like, we just talked for 20 minutes about faith. This guy's convinced that I will burn in hellfire just because of what party I put on the ballot. You know, so
That's crazy to say to somebody.
there's no reasoning with people like that, right? All you have to do is continue to do good work. And like that lady doesn't know that I've made her community safer. She doesn't have to know, right? All I have to do is love her enough to do the work, even if she's not going to appreciate it. Or for that guy, even if he's not going to appreciate it, I still have to do the work and just not be out for the credit. Just know that God sees what's actually in my heart.
Yeah, that's dope. That is dope, man. Definitely appreciate you. Oh, I do. I appreciate. I'm gonna clap it up for you. But the only thing I want to say, I'm gonna try to get better at this. Somebody said you got to start telling people. I'm gonna get better at this. The only thing I'm gonna ask somebody for nothing. But once I post it, I'm gonna edit and all that stuff. Just share it. Just
Yes.
if you can share it and add some commentary with it so people think it's a big deal. Because my only issue I've had with some people I had on the path was like I see them share a lot of stuff and not the stuff we did. I'm like, that is insane. Like, he did something better than this, you know? So if you could just, I was told to start asking. So
I will
need to go
absolutely do that.
I appreciate it. And I know you're a busy man, so I'm not expecting you to share every single thing, but of course, just in full, you know, the link in full and say, hey, we talked about XYZ and going from there. But this was amazing, man. I appreciate you for coming through. Clap it up for you one more time. I know you got a busy week ahead of you. Be safe going to Vanderbilt tomorrow. I listen. You see that? I listen to everything he was saying. So, yeah, man, I appreciate you coming through and don't make this your last time, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Morning Masters Podcast, we out.